But here is who exactly AI predicts to be the next pope. Howdy y'all, I'm Brylan. So I asked AI to predict who the next pope is going to be. And after using all of its antichrist data collecting features, it gave me an answer. And truth be told, if you're a Catholic, you should be terrified. Not to sound like a total bummer, but what can you do? Now I'm going to show you exactly what AI said about who the next pope is going to be. It gave lots of information, and it actually concluded with its prediction of who it thinks is going to be the next pope. And just to be real, I think it might be right. With the current times we're living in, it makes complete sense in like the worst way possible. Now the conclave, which is essentially all the cardinals that are going to vote on the next pope, is a secret voting process where every single cardinal swears an oath to secrecy. So basically, you're never gonna know exactly what happened during the conclave. Hey, would you consider hitting that thumbs up button? When you like this video, it'll get pushed out to more people to help spread the truth. In fact, the conclave is so secret that even every single meal that these cardinals eat is monitored. Everything is monitored so that there's no trickery going on or outside communication happening. In fact, they're not even allowed to have any outside communication. Once they enter the conclave, that's it. They don't have any internet access, no phones, nada, nothing. In fact, it's kind of interesting because they actually pushed the conclave back from May 5th to May 7th so that they could have more time to basically do all the stuff they're not allowed to do during the conclave before the conclave. Now, the upcoming conclave on May 7th will be less Eurocentric, they love pointing that out, than it has ever been before, with over 3/4 of the 135 cardinals electors appointed by Pope Francis. Think about this for a second. Pope Francis actually selected 80% of the cardinals that are going to vote for the next pope. That means 108 of the 135 cardinals that are voting are essentially Pope Francis in terms of the, being more open and progressive and, loving. Now, there's actually tons of new cardinals that are voting in this conclave as well, which is kind of unprecedented. So this is really a conclave, if you will, for Catholics that is different than a lot of conclaves that have come before them. Certainly in any of the lifetimes that, of any Catholics around today. So it's pretty safe to say that the next pope will be Francis on steroids when it comes to the progressive drift that the Catholic Church is going through right now. In fact, when you look at who has the best chances to actually become the next pope, it's clear that no matter who is chosen, essentially at this point, is going to be either Francis 2.0, but according to AI, and actually my thoughts as well, they're probably going to be left of Francis, which should actually terrify Catholics that want to uphold their own doctrine. Now look at this with me for a second, and then I'll show you who AI predicted to be the next pope. The United States of America has 10 cardinals that are going to be participating in this conclave. Now, if my research is correct, not to toot my own horn or anything, but it's correct about, 40% of the time, then 7 of the 10 cardinals, which you're looking at them on your screen here from the U.S., are liberal, while 3 of them are considered conservative. And I would say only 1 of them is truly all out conservative. That would be the man on the top left here, Raymond Burke. In fact, Burke is so conservative that he's been the most outspoken against LGB and taking life in the womb. And he even said that Joe Biden shouldn't be allowed to take communion because of essentially how liberal he is. The rest of these guys, these 2 next to Burke here, are on the more conservative side along with Burke, and then the rest of them are they're just liberals. But this gives you an idea. 7 of the 10 cardinals from the USA are going to be, obviously, I believe, voting for a pope that aligns with their own beliefs, which lean left, which are, more prone to LGB. Some of these guys are extreme LGB. They think LGB should be a part of the actual authority of the church. Look how the mainstream media is covering the conclave. Now, Ground News shows you exactly how the left and the right are spinning the news. Look, the left is telling you the conclave to choose the next pope will be the most geographically diverse in history, because that's all these people care about. And the right's like, hey, it's time to pick a new pope. That's all there is to it. Now, of course, the mainstream media lies constantly. That's why I love the fact that Ground News tells you exactly how biased each mainstream media outlet is being. So you don't have to guess if they're telling you the truth anymore. Their blind spot feature shows you when the left or the right isn't covering the news that you should know about. You can also see who owns each news outlet. If you go to ground.news/Brylan or scan the QR code on the screen, you can get 40% off the same Vantage plan that I personally use. Thank you for supporting the sponsor of this video, Ground News. It helps me to continue to bring you daily news videos that you can trust. But I want to show you now who AI predicted to be the next pope. I think this is fascinating. And again, it really says a lot about where the system is within the way that Catholicism is run. Now listen to this, and it gives the leading candidates, and at the very end of this, it predicts who it thinks will be the next pope based on all of the information that it has gathered. It starts off with predicting the next pope is inherently uncertain due to the secretive nature of the papal conclave and the complex interplay of theological, political, and personal factors among the cardinals. Historically, frontrunners often fail to secure the papacy, as seen with Pope Francis' unexpected election in 2013. Now, this is true. It's not always the frontrunners. A lot of times, it's not. In fact, even in terms of how long it can take for this conclave to happen, that was one thing that happened with Pope Francis. It took a day. Like, he wasn't the front runner, and then within one day, the conclave voted for Francis to be the pope. Kind of shocking a lot of people. However, at one point, it took 3 years for the conclave to decide who was going to be the pope. That was back in like the year 11 or 1200. Something like that. It's been quite a while since it's taken that long. But essentially, it's. I'm guessing they're going to know who the next pope is within a day. Again, I think it's going to be very quick. Maybe a couple days at most. But I think they know exactly who they're wanting to be the next pope. A lot of people are speculating it's like, hey, it's time for a DEI pope. Especially when you see headlines like this from the LA Times, I'm praying for a pope of color, because that's all that matters. Now, the leading candidates are Cardinal Louis Tegel, but the information that AI gathered about them is pretty spot on, although they leave out quite a bit in terms of just how progressive most of these guys really are. Like every single one of these leading candidates it's talking about, with Tegel and Pietro Parolin from Italy, and Peter Turkson from Ghana, and Matteo Zuppi from Italy, all of these guys are left. In fact, the most moderate technically would be Pietro Parolin, who is essentially, was extremely close to Pope Francis and would be the most Francis 2.0 out of all of them. But the rest of them would be left of Francis and cause a lot of issues for the Catholic Church. I have a video on all these guys. You can go see this man could be the next pope, and it should terrify you. I go over most of these guys here and show you exactly what they stand for and who they are in this video. So go watch that. Now, other notable candidates that it describes are Peter Erddo, which we know is kind of a more conservative Pope Francis type guy, and but there's still questionable stuff there. And then you got Pizzaballa, who should just be, he should be the Pope just based on name. If you're a Catholic, wouldn't you love to say Pizzaballa for the next 20 years? Now, it gives key trends and considerations. Francis's influence. Pope Francis appointed 80% of the 133 eligible cardinal electors. Now, it's technically 135, though I think there are a couple. There's one especially that has some health issues. And so I think it's taking that into an account. Maybe it's only 133 that are actually going to be voting. But it says 80% of the 133 eligible cardinal electors, suggesting a tilt toward a candidate who continues his progressive reforms. Even AI knows that Francis was progressive. However, his appointees are not uniformly progressive, reflecting diverse global perspectives. Yes and no. I would say that he has overwhelmingly outfitted the cardinals with men that are more on the progressive side. Geographic shift. For the first time, fewer than half the voting cardinals are European, increasing the likelihood of a non-European pope, potentially from Africa or Asia, where the church is growing rapidly. Ideological divide. The conclave may see tension between progressive cardinals and conservatives, like Raymond Burke that I was talking about earlier, with a compromise candidate like Parolin or Zuppi. So Parolin would be the most compromise of the cardinals, but Zuppi would not be a compromise. The dude is progressive. He's left. He's left of even Francis in many ways. But the conclave dynamics, set to begin May 7th, requires 2/3 majority. Recent conclaves have lasted 1 to 5 days, with 4 to 8 ballots typical. The secretive process and shifting alliances make surprises common. But here is who exactly AI predicts to be the next pope. While no candidate is a clear lock, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle is the most likely to become the next pope. That's wild that AI is saying that Tagle is going to become the next pope. His alignment with Francis's vision, global appeal, and representation of Asian growing Catholic population align with the church's current trajectory. Keep that in mind. His moderate stance and charismatic leadership could bridge divides, though he may need to overcome conservative resistance. If cardinals prioritize continuity and diplomacy, Pietro Parolin is a close second. Given his Vatican experience and broader acceptability, an African pope like Turkson remains a strong possibility if the conclave seeks a historic shift. Now that's crazy that AI is saying that Tagle has the best chance. This is Luis Tagle, and he's from the Philippines. Again, would be considered the first Asian pope, but he's very, they call him moderate, but he's pro-LGB. So you're not moderate. He's very progressive. He's very wishy-washy on essentially almost every stance, but he is outspoken when it comes to LGB and wanting to be more pro-LGB and how the Catholic Church should be more open and welcoming. Now, Polymarket actually has Parolin still in the lead. So this is where people put their actual money. It's the betting markets. I don't recommend you go bet on the next pope, but you can see, I think, actually, since AI started predicting who the next pope is going to be, it's between Parolin and Tagle. You can see that the gap has closed hugely. In fact, there was a double-digit gap between them. And then just recently, it's the gap is closed to they're almost tied. The next one that comes in at third is Zuppi at 11%. If they want to go, the more progressive Francis 2.0 on steroids, in fact, left of Francis, then they're going to choose Tagle. AI seems to think Tagle has the best chance. But I would love to know your thoughts to all of this in the comment section. Regardless of what happens, Scripture tells us this in 1 Timothy chapter 2, that in verse 5, for there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man, Christ Jesus, who gave himself as a ransom for all, which is the testimony given at the proper time. Jesus Christ is our only mediator. He is the only one that we place our faith in. There is no others that we need to go through, that we should look to on this earth. No other man, no other woman that we should be looking to. Our mediator is Jesus Christ, and our salvation is found in no one else but Jesus Christ. But hey, let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, join this community. I would love to hear from you on a regular basis. And please hit that thumbs up button, when you like this video, to get pushed out to more people, and it would really help spread the truth. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.